Looking beyond the obvious and small issues allows us to see the big picture and be strategic. Strategic awareness gives you the skills to always see possibility. This means you are able to see new opportunities, to problem solve in a creative way, and to keep the team and company accountable when it comes to change and staying current. Welcome back to today's lesson. When you spend your life overanalyzing every encounter, you will always see the tree, but never the forest. And we're going to keep that in mind for this lesson in order for us to actually see the forest instead of the tree. So that leads us to strategic awareness. Today we're going to cover strategic awareness and strength-based leadership. So let's not delay any further and get into our first topic. So with strategic awareness, we need to think of the following. Strategic awareness is a space where new ideas and innovation are constantly generated from a heightened, non-contextual awareness. With this strategic awareness, leaders operate beyond the goal of competing to actively seize new and different possibilities. They live in the question and act on the possibility of things. They make it improbable or seemingly impossible come true by being aware of resources and problem solving and how everything fits into the big picture. This enhances the possibility and opportunities for success for yourself, for your team, and for the company. Strategically aware leaders have the point of view where there are no short supply of clients, funding, possibilities, new ideas. They are always looking for new ideas, trends, and ways to improve the company. They are able to perceive and find distinct market possibilities. They are able to perceive and find distinct market positions and sustainable advantages in multiple ways. They recognize opportunities and they seize them. The future arises from a constant stream of actions, choices, decisions, and strategies to have everything made so that you are conscious and that you are aware and you are using foresight, skills, and the wisdom that you have obtained from being a leader and a manager through your experiences. So, how can you be strategically aware to create new opportunities? Well, with strategic awareness, leaders operate beyond the rules of competition, allowing previously unseen opportunities to be recognized in a timely manner. That is your key word. It doesn't help if you're able to see the opportunity, but it is not timely, you can't actually use it. So it's seeing an opportunity, creating a strategy to actually use the opportunity and doing it quickly before the competition realizes that there is a gap and there is an opportunity. This thinking process extends your awareness beyond the doors of your organization, beyond the confines of your industry or service sector, beyond your current day-to-day reality. For example, Steve Jobs had the ability to be strategically aware. If he did not, you would not have your iPhone. You would not have any Apple products. No new ideas, no possibilities. This means that everything we did back in the 50s, back in the 90s, that would be exactly the same. So the idea of you working remotely, having flexible options, would not even be an option. This is why strategic awareness is so important. This is why the way we see the world needs to change as an organization, as a leader, and as a manager so that we can stay hungry, so that we can look for new opportunities. Otherwise, we're not going to stay current. We're not going to be in the same industry for the next 10 years. And that is why we need these types of skills from managers, from leaders in all levels of the organization in order to come up with new ideas, new methods of doing something, and a new point of view. Leaders who utilize strategic awareness are unaffected by limiting belief systems. Nothing you tell them will limit these people, and that is the point of it. You need leaders and managers to push beyond what has been told of them, to push beyond their belief system. They don't believe in a right or a wrong way, and that is the point. They need to look for new opportunities, come up with bizarre ideas which no one might believe in, but in the long run, it pays off. If you become attached to fixed outcome or strategic direction, your ability to react to advantages will be nullified. So let's look at the benefits of strategic awareness. According to an article on LinkedIn by Miriam, the article is Why Strategic Awareness Key Leadership is a Competency That Everyone Needs. So here we see getting out of autopilot and becoming more aware what is truly happening inside and outside of ourselves, our industry, our companies. This means that we can look outside of our industry and see new opportunities, ways to diversify, ways to expand our company, and looking back and forward. This means maybe acquiring a supplier and linking up with clients to improve your business or business model. See the big picture and recognize the interconnection among people and situations you haven't noticed before. Again, looking behind you. This means maybe going to a supplier, getting a new product or service that you can add to your current business, or looking at the competition, ways that you can improve. This also means looking at industries that are quite related to yours or something that you've been wondering for a while. You can always do research, find out more, look at surveys to see where you can expand and look at the picture as a whole, not just your company, not just your sector or industry, because this limits you quite a lot. Now you have to think of your role. Where do you fit into this position? Where do you fit into this picture? Maybe you are in a lower level management position and you feel powerless, but that is not the case. The way that you are managing your employees, the way that you are managing products, services, all makes an impact on the business. It doesn't matter where you are, the resources you have, because you have strategic awareness. You can come up with new innovative ideas and ways to reach clients, ways to get better suppliers, ways to improve the operations of the company. And it starts with you taking a step back, seeing the bigger picture, and understanding where you fit in. Make more conscious choices and create new possibilities for ourselves, for our organizations, and for the world around us. This means that we are thinking proactively. We are thinking about the consequences of our actions. And that's the big picture here, right? We want to make decisions, but we understand, okay, so if I make this decision, it's going to impact my employees, the other managers around me, my customers. And that is why we have to understand fully why we need to make a decision and what is the outcome of what you want from that decision. Okay, so let's look at what strategic awareness attributes we find with this system. According to CSSP, first we see consume information. It is not unusual to find strategic thinkers and people who are strategically aware to consume knowledge, to consume information, and that is the switch you need to make. If you are someone who reads a lot, does a lot of research, strategic awareness will come easier to you. If not, now is the time to make the switch. If you are interested in something, go read about it. If you want to know more about another industry, go read about it. There are thousands of resources online and they are free. If you are not researching, not looking into the problems, you are limiting yourself and no one else. So that is why we need you to take active control of your strategic awareness in order to improve it and to expand your knowledge. When you are setting up a proposal or you want to come up with a new idea, new industry that you want to focus on, you have to come with the data, the information, and you have to present that to the company leaders, right? So it's the same thing here. When you want to do a change, when you want to do anything that is innovative, creative, you need to have research, you need to understand the impact of it, and you need to be able to explain it, right? When you understand something fully, you are able to then present it and inform other people. Next up, we see people who are strategically aware can listen to everyone. That doesn't mean you have to agree with every statement or every person that you meet, but it means that you are actively listening, that you are not allowing your own bias to limit you from listening to people, that you are not allowing your own opinion to come between you and information. 90% of good strategy is listening, and 10% is completely ignoring what people tell you. The great thing, of course, is choosing the 90% to listen. Regardless of good strategic thinkers, they seldomly assume that they have the information. They actively listen to people because they understand that each person that you speak to has something to contribute. Either it is they have information about the industry or they are a consumer, right? Now you're getting firsthand information from someone who's using the product or service, or they haven't used it and they just have a bad opinion about it. But this means that you're gaining insight from different people. But if you are defensive or you are allowing your own bias to come into play, you are limiting yourself because you don't want to hear what this person is saying, you're interrupting them, and you're not in the mood for this conversation. So if this is you, if this sounds like you, start making that switch. Allow for everyone to share their opinion and you to listen. Next up, seeing how the business situation is like such different things shows a flexible and a creative understanding of businesses and the world in general. The key is to see the connection between different situations. So you can see that there are different situations, what overlaps, what is different, and because of this, you are able to analyze situations and make informed decisions. So it's about strategically thinking, strategically using information to your benefit, and then being aware. This means you have to have a heightened ability to sense situations, to look at situations and actually analyze it, not just see it. Because I think a lot of time when we are in situations, we're not analyzing as much because our emotions take over. Unfortunately, it means that maybe you don't feel well or it's a lot of information, so you have to process everything. And then on top of that, your personality type comes into play, right? So you're an introvert, so you're analyzing everything internally, or you're an extrovert, so you have to speak and you have to get everything out. So because of this, it's hard to analyze information and look at situations and be strategic. So an easy way to do this is take a step back. So after you're done with conversations or dealing with people, take time to reflect. Or if you see something happening, don't step in, listen, take in the information, process it, and then react. So it doesn't mean that you are reactive, it means that you're proactive. It means that you're taking your time before making decisions and before deciding what you want to do. Okay, so next up, how can you become more strategically aware? According to conscious governance, take notice of changing conditions around you, especially anomalies. We have to be aware of what is happening, and like I said before, take a step back, look at the odd things and things that stand out to you, and then start spotting those. When you get into the movement or into the rhythm of being strategically aware, you're going to see the world in such a different way because you are aware. You're not just going through the rhythm. You're taking a step back and looking at the big picture. Being curious is underrated at times, right? We want people to always find out things, but then when it's us, it's hard work. Being curious isn't something that just happens naturally for a lot of people. It means that you have to take the steps to ask questions, to listen, to do research, to find out more. So curiosity is something that can be worked on. It's something that can be developed, but you have to be aware. Do you think you are curious now? Yes or no? And if not, how can you improve this step? I would say the first step would be asking questions, asking why, asking how, asking the questions to find out what is behind the story in order to make informed decisions. So this means looking out from beyond your scope. It means not looking at your industry, not looking at your country, not looking at your little world, but looking at what is globally happening. It means you can look at resources that are available, trends that are coming up, shortages that are coming up, how the industry is changing, because what happens in a major country always affects the world. And that is why we have to look at the global environment and how that impacts our business, our industry, and how that is going to affect our customers, because ultimately it's going to affect our products and our services. So strategically awareness means that I am not only looking at my industry or my country, no, I'm taking the time to fully understand what is happening in the world. Staying up to date with related industries is so important because it helps you to look at opportunities to expand, at new trends, at ways that you can reach more customers to improve your product or your service. So it is so important to always know what the competition is doing and changes coming up. You can look at better innovation, better technology, and the best practices from each company that you are investigating. but this takes time. So I would set out time each month to look at what the competition is doing, look at their advertisements, their websites, their services, their products, and how they are getting things done. Next up, monitoring trends. And I've said this word a few times in this lesson. Trends are so important. So let's think of a trend. Here we have diet trends. What happened is people wanted to go keto. So what the restaurants did is they had keto meals on their menus. Amazing, because it meant that people who follow the keto diet could go to a restaurant, they could actually enjoy food with their family and friends instead of being limited because they could not get in the meals that they wanted. So because the restaurant followed this trend, they were able to jump on this, adjust their menu, which isn't a lot of money if you think they can have different boards, or they can update their menu, create a temporary menu, and they could attract all these customers. So following trends means that you can tap into funds, tap into new customers, and then if it changes, you are adapting with the market. But the other problem is trends don't always last. So if it's a short trend, so let's say it's a viral video on TikTok and everyone wants weird candy floss. The problem is if you follow this trend, it's a very limited amount of time. So this trend might work for a month because everyone is making videos on it. So for that month, you are investing a short amount of time to get into this trend. So I wouldn't say change your menus, change everything. Only create a short version so that you can access or tap into this market really quickly. So you have to assess what type of trend is it? Is it worth investing? And if you invest, how much can you invest because you don't know how long this will last? So taking risks. If we think about a trend, right? You have to decide if this is worth taking a risk, if this is worth changing the menu, is this worth creating a new product line? So it's about understanding how much are you going to gain? Are you going to gain new customers? Is it only going to be profitable for a short amount of time? And then if you take this risk, is it worthy the amount that you're going to spend? So just think about the pros and the cons. You can do a SWOT analysis. What is the strength of this, the opportunities? You can work out the funds, how much this is going to cost you, and the revenue you think you're going to get in. So it's just about being strategic, planning, and creating systems so that you can take risks, but be informed. That is the key word here. So next up, we're going to look at strategic awareness forecasting. The pace that most businesses are moving at, combined with the pressure on many leaders and managers, means that little time is made for reflecting and learning in the workplace these days. The tendency is to do a cursory glance at the results from last year before drawing conclusions and moving into future plans. This often leads to repeating patterns and nothing really being resolved, so businesses make the same mistakes, same problems. It's just going through the paces. So hindsight is used for reflecting. And we need more business leaders and managers to reflect on what happened last year. What were the best practices and the worst practices? How can you improve these situations before moving forward? Insight is the bridge between the past and the future. Profound insight is rooted in data. But in the age of big data, we need to be choiceful about which data we pay attention to and how this is converted into information. Before knowledge and then wisdom can be formed. Insight development also benefits from using different modes of knowing. Most senior teams have a preference for the logical cognitive space, and leaders are usually highly developed in their thinking skills. But how often do we really leverage the amazing right brain capability of human beings? So the idea is looking at all of this information and bridging the gap. How can we use the past? How can we use hindsight? And how can this give us insight? Here, it comes down to experience. Experience will tell you what data to look at and what to discard. It will tell you where you need to focus and where you need to let it be. Young leaders might come in and say, well, look at last year. It was a disaster. We're going to come in and change everything. But an experienced leader will tell you, wait, we're going to look at best practices. We're going to look at what we did right, what we did wrong, and how we're going to learn and bridge that gap. Finally, Because we can't see into the future, because we don't have a crystal ball, we have to develop ways to look at foresight, to look at what might be. This work really benefits the right brain and it allows us to think of possible situations, how we're going to deal with it, and be proactive. Proactive is your key word here. Foresight means that you are looking at the entire big picture. You're sitting there and saying, okay, we know what happened last year. We're going to forecast of what is coming up next year. We're going to look at how can we improve and we're going to make adjustments. We're going to have a plan A, a B, C, and we're going to be ready for it. So you are helping people be ready for change. You are actively informing everyone so they have the same information. Here your planning and future planning skills will come in handy. It means that you are creating plans based on the data that you receive that is grounded on real information, real data, because you took the time to look at hindsight. So you took the time to look at what happened. You took the time to create insight. And then with those steps in place, you are able to use foresight. Okay, so let's look at each one in a bit more depth. For hindsight, you have to review past actions. So what did we do right? What should we have done? What can we take away from this? And how can we do it differently? So it's creating workshops and meetings where people can actually analyze the information and they can speak about what happened in a group setting. You can also send out surveys. It's great to have the session in person because people can talk about what happened and why. So hindsight isn't this big thing that's a once a year occurrence. No, it can be a day-to-day function. So reviewing your day means that you can go back, look at what you accomplished and what you did not. This way you can see that, did I make the right choices? What can I do differently? What can I learn and where are the opportunities that I missed? So how can you do this? Well, a good idea is to journal. You can keep a journal of what you accomplished, what you did not accomplish, and you can keep track of it. So when you feel like you are repeating patterns, you're doing the same thing over and over again, you can go back in your journal, see where you did it, how you felt, and what strategy you created to overcome this. And then if you didn't overcome it, why? So this means hindsight is allowing you to improve your behavior as a manager and a leader, which is so important, right? Because if we don't improve, how do we want our staff to improve? Creating these practices means as a team, you all value best practices. You all value learning from mistakes and you're looking for opportunities to improve. So I would say if you are looking at hindsight, do this as a group. Take time at the end of the day to reflect on what you did. And then when you have your team meeting, go over it. This is a great way to become more united as a group and to have a growth mindset, to have a safe space with psychological safety because you have these things in place. Next, foresight. Hindsight explains why things went wrong, and foresight prevents it from happening again. Foresight can be a significant improvement in our lives because it helps us to look at opportunities, pitfalls, challenges, because we now have the experience and a way of assessing what is happening. Start assessing potential future threats, trends, and troubles. Foresight means that you are using hindsight to assess situations, but it takes practice. So over time, the more you journal, the more you have hindsight sessions where you are reflecting, it will help you with your foresight. Understanding consequences is something that we expect people to do. We expect you that if you take action, you are thinking of the consequences, but that is not true. And the more I work with people, with managers and leaders, the more this rings true. People don't understand consequences. So if you see this, I would suggest pulling someone aside, explaining this. So a good example here is, I used to train for a supply company, and the employees on the supply chain did not understand if they were under-delivering, they were affecting the client. If they were making mistakes, they were affecting the client. So they could not see how their role was a big deal. So if they were behind, if they were wasting resources, it's not a big deal. So we had to create a workshop, a meeting where they could see the impact, the cost that they were having on the company. If they missed production schedules, everything was behind. If they wasted resources, the company had to pay. If they did not communicate, the orders were behind. So we had to create a system where people understood the consequences. And you can use this in any business. Employees need to understand their role. They need to understand their role of being behind or getting ahead. And that is why you can use consequences and reward systems. And being proactive, the buzzword we've been using. Proactive means that you are using the data, you are analyzing it, you are assessing it, and you are proactively ready for things that might come up. So you have plans in place, you know the data, you are doing the research. So if something pops up, you are informed. Let's look at foresight. So, being inquisitive, being curious, you have to look at what is coming up. So this means reading, doing research, being up to date with what is happening in your industry, the world, and what are trends that people are following. So looking for trends, you can look at social media, you can research what is coming up in your industry, you can look at your industry leaders. They are usually the people who are setting the trends, and then as a result, the rest of the industry will follow. You can follow pages like LinkedIn. And right now, because social media is so big, it also sets trends and it creates a system where businesses have to adjust their behavior, adjust their language in order to fit the needs of social media trends. Then empowering questions. This means that you are looking for insightful questions and you are using that to empower yourself, empower your employees. So it's teaching people to ask the right question, to listen to the right people, and to look for ways to improve themselves. It's an eye opener because it helps us to look for new ways of doing something. For example, in the sales industry, a marketing genius had the insight that people don't want quarter-inch drills. They want quarter-inch holes. In other words, people are not interested in the product, but in what the product can do for them. This insight turned around the marketing and allowed them to create salespeople focusing on the benefits instead of the features of the product. As a result, sales soared. So this is why insight is so needed, because he understood the customer, he was able to create a marketing campaign that looked at their needs and not at the features of what they were offering. So they had more sales, and you can do the same for your team and for your company. Then before we move on, just a little brain break, I want to recap how do we foster innovation. So this is just a little activity that you can do with your team. So when you're speaking about strategic awareness, about being strategic, just how can you explain it to them? Well, a 3-minute activity to foster innovation in your team. So when your team has ideas, you need to create situations where they can be creative. This means they need permission to think actively and creatively about their ideas. So the fact is that when people have ideas, they need others to help cultivate it. They need others to help brainstorm and to create a fully fledged idea and plan to actually get it going. So the activity is called Follow the Instructions. So the activity is a very powerful activity, and we don't want people to feel awkward, and we want them to actually try it out. Give each person a blank sheet of paper. Have them stand and close their eyes. Closing their eyes is critical in order to make the point. Tell them to follow your instructions. Fold the paper in half. Tear off upper right-hand corner of the paper. Then fold in the bottom edge. Next, tear off a section along the bottom edge. Fold the paper into a triangle. Then tear off one point of that triangle. Turn the paper over and tear off a portion along the top edge. Open the paper and open your eyes. Look around and see how different each person's paper looks. That's the beauty of the exercise. The point is, even though we all followed the same instructions, even though we all have the same understanding, it doesn't look the same. So it is unlimited, the options that we have, because we have the same information, but the outcomes are so different. You don't have to do the tearing and the folding of the paper. You can do any activity, but the point is giving people the same instructions and seeing how each person looks at that information and uses it. And that is the beauty of how each of our brains work and how different we all are, even though we're in the same teams with the same amount of information. Okay, guys, that time of the lesson, sit back. Please relax as I review the sneak peek. In lesson 7, we're going to look at adaptive leadership. This means adapting to different situations as a person, taking your organization to that level and your teams. This is not a lesson that you can skip. It builds into how we react as managers and leaders. Okay, with that, we are going to look at the next portion, the last section of this lesson, strength-based leadership. According to Mind Tools, most managers struggle to handle their tasks and those of their team members in a way that makes the most of everyone's skills and abilities. Maybe you're one of them. So for example, let's say you have to compile data for a key report, but data has never been your specialty. Chances are someone else in your team might have the skills needed to create this report. Strength-based leadership can help both you to achieve your goals and see the value of what each person is bringing to the table in your team. This is a wonderful leadership approach because you're looking at the strengths of each person and bringing that together. I love this leadership type because I think it's empowering. It's a great approach to take and something that you can always use in any industry and in any team. Strength-based leadership is the ability to identify and make the best of your own and your team members' strengths. Of course, this doesn't mean that you or your team should avoid learning new skills, but you should feel like you are able to delegate tasks because you know each person's skill set, their experience, and you understand how to best use these things. Strength-based leadership, great leaders, teams, and why people follow is a book launched in 2009. So this book was created to look at the best abilities and ranges from different business leaders and why they are so successful. I recommend looking into this book because it's great insight, it's a great read, and it's going to help you a lot to do research, collect data, and get the best practices as a manager and leader. So what is the importance of strength-based leadership? Well, what's more, a strength-based approach encourages you to hire people based on their individual abilities and aptitudes, not just their skills and experiences that are similar to yours. So strength-based approaches can benefit your leadership and your team's performance in several ways. First, admitting that you need help and accepting that everyone is bringing something else to the table. So this means that you have a laissez-faire leadership style by asking help, looking for strengths, looking for weaknesses, and it helps you to create a process where people feel like they can step up to the plate, they can share their strengths, and they can be part of the team. I think teams with this in place outperform teams who do not. Because if I know I'm good at something and I feel like I can go to my manager and say, listen, I want to help you, I want to be involved, I want to share my skills, you are more inclined to want to participate, to want to be part of the team. Versus if I have a great skill and my manager feels threatened by it, I won't share it. So the company isn't benefiting by it. So if we can identify what people are interested in, what they want to develop, what they bring to the table, you will have a holistically great team because you're focusing on these key points. So how do you apply strength-based leadership? The first step to using strength-based leadership activity is to take a step back and assess your own strengths. What are you best at? What are your weaknesses? So a great tool here is to do a personal SWOT analysis. Here you can gauge your strengths, your weaknesses, where are the opportunities that you're missing, and the threats that you are currently facing. Remember that we covered this in module 1, so if you want to go back, there is tools that you can always use. You can discover what is unique about you and where you are lacking. Because you know where you are lacking, you can always look at the employees and what they bring to the table. So for example, I had an employee who she was just amazing at Excel. Anything you wanted, she could create, and it was just an impeccable skill to our team. So I would set up the initial form, I would set up the initial process, but then I would hand it over to her because one, I know she was great at it. Two, she loved it. This was like her main thing. If I gave her a project, she thrived. So I delegated it to her. She would automate the process, hand it back to me for review, and when I was happy with it, we would introduce the new process or the new file. This is a great example of saying, hey, I can identify that this person is great at the following. I want to include this person, I want to delegate, and because of this, one, the employee feels recognized. She feels empowered, and she feels like if there is something, I will always rely on her. So it creates a great relationship and a way to acknowledge the great thing that this employee is bringing to the table. So just a little recap, if you want to know more about the SWOT analysis, we look at strengths. So these are internal things that we do great. So for example, you can say, you are great at communicating. It's an internal thing. This is something that you control. But weaknesses, you may struggle with delegation. So you don't know when to delegate, how to delegate, and then how to follow up. So again, something internal that you control. Opportunities. Well, my company is hosting different workshops or courses that I can take for free, but I don't really have the time for it. So this is an external thing that you have an opportunity to improve your performance. And threat, because of my workload. I've gotten double the workload in the last few months, my time is going down, and I don't feel like I can actually improve my skills. So, because you are not the person delegating how much work you can do, this is an outside threat. So guys, there are hundreds of formats that you can do a SWOT analysis on. These are free resources and I will link it in your summary notes. Please conduct your own personal SWOT analysis to see what is good, what is bad, and how you can improve. Well, that brings you to the end of this lesson. You guys are so close. You are 2 lessons away from completing your professional diploma. I know you're getting excited and I hope that you are enjoying the final steps to getting to your diploma. Then just your lesson challenge. Please complete your SWOT analysis. If you're struggling with this, email me at support@shoreacademy.com so that I can step in and help you. This is not something that I recommend that you skip out on, and you can take this activity to your team. People need to reflect to create insight and therefore create foresight. Thank you guys for sticking around to this lesson. I hope you feel informed and that you are motivated to keep going in order to reach your professional diploma. Have a wonderful day and I will speak to you soon.